Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to this afternoon debate session on scaling up the right approach. We hope to spend the next 75 minutes or so thinking about the possibilities and the challenges of bringing effective educational practices to scale across education systems. I just want to introduce them briefly. They'll tell more about what they do, but to my immediate left is Ms. Farida Lambe. She's the co-founder and trustee of Pratham. This is the largest NGO working to improve the quality of underprivileged children in India. It was established in 1994, and it provided preschool education to children in the slums of Mumbai. But since then, it's expanded its services to both in-school and out-of-school children in a variety of ways, whether that's computer literacy, vocational training, and special programs for vulnerable and working children. Through replication of this program, Pratham now serves many cities and rural areas throughout India and has reached millions of children in both rural and urban areas. Pratham also conducts India's influential annual Status of Education in India, which led to the creation of a center dedicated to research and measurement of educational effectiveness. So welcome to Farida Lambe. Martin Bird is the founder and CEO of Fundación Paraguay. It's a 25-year-old NGO devoted to promoting entrepreneurship among the world's poor. And the co-founder and executive director of Teach a Man to Fish. It's a global nonprofit that was established in 2006 to replicate the financially sustainable school model. And in 2002, Fundación Paraguay transformed the San Francisco High School. It's a financially sustainable school, and we'll hear about that more later. But it basically is providing a practical and business education designed to help young people lift themselves out of poverty. He's served on many boards. He's also a winner of the WISE Award in 2009, so welcome to you, Martin. And our final panelist is Wendy Kopp. She's the CEO of Teach for America, as well as the co-founder and CEO of Teach for All, which expands beyond the United States to 23 other countries. In 2011, a record 48,000 applicants applied for Teach for America, which involves a recent group of college graduates from universities that make a 2-year commitment to teach in high-poverty settings. More than 9,200 core members are currently reaching 600 students in their 2-year teaching commitments across 43 regions of the United States. A few years ago, in 2007, Ms. Kopp collaborated with the CEO of Teach First, the British adaptation of Teach for America, to develop Teach for All, a growing global network of independent organizations in 22 countries who are passionate about the TFA model. She's written 2 books, the first book in 2007 about her experiences with Teach for America. Most recently this year, she published a book, A Chance to Make History, What Works and What Doesn't in Providing an Excellent Education for All. So please welcome our panelists. So to begin with, I want to just start by giving the people here that may not have an understanding of your organizations, by starting out with this question. What is the fundamental educational problem that your organization aims to address? And I think we'll start with Wendy and work down the line this way.
The programs in the Teach for All network, from Teach for America to the other programs, are working to address the fact that still in countries ranging in development, where kids are born determines their educational prospects. Even in the United States, the 16 million kids who are growing up below the poverty line, 8% of them will graduate from college by the time they're 24 versus 80% of the top quartile kids from an income perspective. In rural China, the 250 million kids in rural China have a 5% or so chance of graduating from college versus, say, 75 or 80% of the urban kids in China. And of course, this is a pervasive problem across the world. And so what our programs are doing is working to essentially enlist our country's most promising future leaders in addressing that problem. All of these different programs, independent organizations, work to recruit their country's most promising future leaders people who weren't necessarily going to go into teaching, to get them to commit 2 years to teach in the highest poverty areas, invest in their training and development in pursuit of really important immediate impacts for kids and also really important long-term impacts, because we believe that ultimately, to actually scale up education reform, we need to focus on building the leadership capacity necessary to do that. And ultimately, the idea is that these programs will produce leaders who will work at every level of the education system, across professional sectors, at every level of policy, and who will take with them the foundational understandings that come from having taught successfully in this context.
Martin.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for this opportunity to be with you. The problem in my country, Paraguay, but also in many South American countries, is that many poor people have access to schools, but they drop out because not only do they come from poor households, but the schools are very bad. So it's no longer about access to education. Throughout the developing world, the governments have built schools, but students are still dropping out. So it's not only about access to education, but quality education. We are seeing a problem of chronic youth unemployment, and the thing is, how do you provide quality education in poor countries? We are testing the idea that what is needed is to incorporate entrepreneurship and financial literacy in the curriculum, and have the schools, through campus school enterprises, generate income that both serves to finance the school and also serves to provide the students with the skills they need upon graduation. And we are finding that this model provides 100% employability through a 100% market-based curriculum, through a 100% financially self-sufficient system. And so I think that this afternoon we can talk about the challenges of exporting this model to other countries in Latin America and in Africa. And we have good news and also some challenges.
Yeah, and I'm sure we have a lot to learn from that, so we'll get into that this afternoon. Farida, if you could.
Yeah, just to take on from what my other panel members have said, India, we have a similar problem. Access is not such a major issue. Enrollment is not an issue. 96% children are in school, but the issue is about quality. And we in India have about 42 to 45% children who are in grade 5 who do not know how to read and write for grade 2. And they also cannot do simple division sums. So for us, the problem more than enrollment is quality, as both the panelists have said. We at Pratham are dedicated to bring education to every child. And we feel that the child cannot be deprived of education because he is born in a particular family. So through getting education to him, we want equitable society. We are also trying to look at quality, of course. We are also increasing enrollment in the school. And we are testing this whole model by saying that we need to work with the government, because the government has the primary responsibility of giving education to its citizens, to its children, because it is a constitutional mandate. And we at Pratham are saying that we will supplement the governmental efforts rather than substituting the government. And by doing so, we are working in almost all the states, touching the lives of about 3 million children. And we have a big program called Read India, with, of course, ASAR, which you already mentioned, which is the annual status of education report, which is trying to look at assessment and learning outcomes, and how do you really measure learning outcomes. So as Bert says, that we need to look at challenges, which I will continue further.
So, talking about quality in education, whether it's teachers, self-sustainable models for poor children, or making sure that all children not only have access, but have access to quality education. So, this panel is about scaling up. So, in your particular organization, about what you do, what's your approach to scaling up? Why don't we start with Martin, and then we'll go to Larita, and then with Wendy.
we were invited to go to participate in the Clinton Global Initiative. And we proposed a commitment to go to 50 countries in 10 years. Our objective is to show that the youth of the Palestinian youth in Damascus is the same as the Brazilian youth in the Amazon jungle, and is the same as the South African youth in Durban. The problem that all the youth have is employability. We need to make schools, make them work ready, either self-employed or that they can access a decent job, or that they can go on to further education. So that is what needs to be qualified as quality. Because or else we run the risk that we are just promoting access to the same kind of bad educational systems. So when we are trying to scale, we have developed a social franchise, like a school in a box that is culturally neutral, but customized for every reality. And students, we have added 2 components to the traditional concept of learning by doing. We have added to the learning by doing, we have the students selling and making money. And that is not only motivational, but filled with skills. So our strategy for scaling is to scale our operations, but also to find partners in every country. So this is a demand-driven process. And our ultimate objective is to have governments take on this social innovation and incorporate it into the government curriculum. Because for some mysterious reason, and maybe somebody in the audience can tell us, the curricula in most countries does not teach students how to make money. It is a mystery. Why not? So they don't know how to get a job. They don't know how to become self-employed. They don't have any financial literacy. And of course, they are going to have a very difficult time entering the work market, the job market. So this is what we need to transform education as we know it, because, well, among other things, my humble opinion is that the Arab Spring that everybody's talking about has a big component of youth frustration because they can't find work. And so, but most of those people have attended the educational system. So there is a problem there.
Yeah, so there's a huge gap there. So Farida, if you could talk about the approach that Pratham uses.
What we have done actually is that we have an idea. And I think that idea is power. And we feel that that idea, if implemented, we started with an innovation. We said we will look at how children need to be taught. And in teaching children, researchers, the in-house researches we've done, even outside researches, we feel that when children are taught from where they are, rather than from where they need to be, children learn much faster. And I think we've got a very simple pedagogy which says that if you do it this way, children will definitely learn. This idea was implemented in certain places in Mumbai and other parts of India, and it was like an innovation. And what tricked is, I think, the demonstration that it has a visible result. It is very concrete, it has specific outcome. For example, parents whose children were not learning at all suddenly thought their children were learning. So that itself was a huge result and a huge success for Pratham, saying that, if you do this, parents and the community is important. The other aspect, I think, in scaling up is that we worked with the government, and we felt that the government should take this up. It should own this program. At some places, we've been able to actually demonstrate and the government has taken it over. In some places, we are still struggling. The other part is in terms of research and monitoring. We feel that in any scaling up, the problem is always, do we maintain quality. I really personally feel if the idea is simple and if it is doable and it is not much rocket science in it, people take it up and people do it well. And I think the Pratham model has given that learning. So in terms of annual status of education report, we've been able to actually, in the last 5 years, we've been able to assess children in about 633 districts of India, which is out of the 657 districts in India. And we've just asked 3 simple questions with a simple test. Does your child know how to read and write? Is your child in school? And at what level? And we've tried to look at this report like an alternative report, and we've given it to the government, which fortunately for us, the government has accepted this. And this has become like a benchmark for learning guarantee scheme. I also want to say that when you're looking at scaling up, communities are very important. Whom are you doing it with and whom are you doing it for? And we've seen that there are volunteers within the community who own this program because they themselves are teaching, and one of their motivation is that I want to change the face of my community from where I came. And I think that's important in scaling up because NGOs or people like us are not too many and we can't go everywhere. So it is the community which works. And the last point which I want to make here is that one needs to look at the political will. If you have a political will, scaling up is easier. And also, as a part of the political will in India, we have a huge democracy, and the lowest democracy unit is at the village, which is an extremely powerful unit. In Hindi, we call it the Gram Panchayat. It is the parliament of the people at the village level. And they have development funds, they have education funds, and what we've really done is we've worked with them and to say that this is your village, these are your children. There are some children who are missing. There are some children who don't know how to read and write. So you need to do something about it. And the moment we have put the ball in their court, with Pratham looking at more facilitation, technical guidance, I think the scaling up has worked.
Thank you very much. So Wendy, same question to you about your approach, and if you could talk about the approach of scaling up, not only for Teach for America, but also kind of Teach for All.
Yes, so just to talk about those 2 levels, I think for all of the programs that are part of the Teach for All network, really maximizing the impact of this model is all about getting bigger and better. Like we need to attain, no one's trying to provide their nation's teachers. They're working to build a critical mass of leaders who will work for change throughout their lives. But nonetheless, the critical mass piece is important. Like each of these programs is working to reach the point where not just a few, but many of their country's future leaders know what you know after you've taught successfully in a low-income community. So that means that there is a mandate to scale. And Teach for America itself has grown from 1,000 teachers in the midst of their 2 years to 9,000 teachers in the midst of their 2 years. And of course, there's an exponential impact on the growth of the alumni force, which we also do a lot to sort of develop over time. We believe scale is critical, and of course there are many challenges in that, and we can all get into those as we go on. I think for Teach for All, really Teach for All came about in response to social entrepreneurs in very diverse contexts all around the world who were very passionate about pursuing this model in their countries. And ultimately that generated the idea of a network that would advance the development and accelerate the development of an impact of this model, around the world. It would accelerate Teach for America's impact. It would accelerate, the newest organization's impact through kind of leveraging the power of a global network. And so Teach for All is responsive to local leadership and initiative. All of the programs in the Teach for All network are independent organizations, but they're united by, really what we've found is a universal idea, by this idea that they should be channeling their nation's future leaders against really the most fundamental of all issues, the quality and equity of education.
Great.